Amen. Rally Day. Our world has seen a lot of rallying lately. It seems a long time ago, it was just a few weeks ago that we were in Beijing watching the Olympics, the whole world rallying on that big global event. And then after that, the Democrats rallied in Denver. Half the world rallied, half the nation rallied there, and the other half just rallied in St. Paul for the Republican convention. A lot of rallying. I'd like to talk about rallying. We're in Rally Day, and what we rally around. I'm going to share with you a story that should be familiar to you, the road to Emmaus. We'll pay attention to this scripture and pay attention to what's happening here. You're invited to listen, and if listening involves breathing a few deep breaths or closing your eyes and just really paying attention to these words, casting off the distractions so that this story might become fresh for you, you're invited to do that. Now that same day, 2 of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. And they were talking with each other about everything that had happened. And as they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. But they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you only a visitor to Jerusalem? And do you not know the things that have happened there in these days?" "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the 3rd day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but him they did not see." He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all the prophets have spoken. Did not the Christ have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus acted as if he were going farther, but they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. And when he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together, and saying, "It is true, the Lord has risen and appeared to Simon." Then the 2 told what had happened on the way, and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. Two people walking on a road to Emmaus, talking about Jesus. I've got a question for you. It's a good question I want you to ponder. When's the last time you talked about Jesus? Two people on the road talking about Jesus. When's the last time you talked about Jesus? Now, it was fairly easy for these people to talk about Jesus. It was the news of the day. I don't think anybody in Jerusalem was not talking about Jesus sometime during that day. They were talking about Jesus. He was the headlines. He was the town news. But there's more going on in that conversation than merely talking about the events or the gossip of the day. Although that's important, because our faith is founded upon events. There really was a person, Jesus, who rode in on a donkey to be proclaimed in the crowd and who was put on a cross to many people's great surprise, who did leave the tomb empty, there were events that had to be talked about. But there's more than going on in this conversation than just talking about events and shrugging shoulders and saying, what do you think? I don't know, what do you think? Their hearts are engaged. Because we see later on in the conversation, they talk about Jesus being the one that we had hoped would redeem Israel. And they're confused about what the women had said. They're bringing their hopes and their confusions to the events of Jesus. When's the last time you had that sort of conversation with anybody about Jesus? I have a vision that this church will be a place where conversations happen about Jesus. And we get connected to each other and to Jesus in our conversations. He comes up to them, this third person. I don't know much about those two people except I do know one of their names, Cleopas. I know this too about them, that they were good people. They welcomed a stranger in their midst. And soon this stranger was having conversation as if he was one of them. I have a vision too of St.Stephanus having conversations about Jesus where strangers get welcomed into those conversations. And there's some connecting that takes place. What are you talking about? Haven't you heard? And then they begin to talk about this Jesus of Nazareth. And they bring their hopes and their confusions to this conversation and the events of the day. And then Jesus, or this third person, begins to talk. Opens up scriptures. Don't you remember in the Psalms how it was prophesied that this would happen? Don't you remember what Moses said? Don't you remember the prophets? What you just experienced wasn't accident or chaos. This was actually a divine plan. There's fulfillment here. It was fulfilled in the scriptures. And they have a conversation about Jesus with scripture. I have a vision where St.Stephanus is having conversations about Jesus with each other, with strangers. And they're all looking at scripture. You see, our conversations don't have to be just about what you think or what you feel or whatever the latest gossip of the day is and somehow related to our Christian faith. Our conversations can be centered in something much more authoritative than that. Our Christian conversations are based in Scripture. And that's what Jesus has, a conversation with these people in Scripture. They keep walking. It's getting to be evening. They invite Jesus for the meal. Again, I like these two people. They're hospitable people. A conversation about Jesus centered on Scripture where strangers are welcomed, and not only that, but they're dined. I have a vision, too, of St. Stephanus being a place where regularly strangers get welcomed in with these conversations and people have meals together, where real fellowship and friendship takes place. Jesus takes the bread, breaks it, gives it to them, gives thanks. And in that moment, suddenly their eyes are open. And they recognize who this third person was, and it was Jesus. And he disappears. Just a word about that presence of Christ. Paul says that when we shall be raised from the dead on that last day, we confess that in our creed, that we will be raised with a glorified body. And he says, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but it's different than what we have here. Jesus is the first fruits, the Bible also says. So what happens to Jesus happens to us. And we see a post-Easter Jesus confusing people, his presence. It's awfully mysterious. These were people who should have known it was Jesus. After all, they did know, later on we'll see, They did know how to get back to the disciples' hideaway. They knew where to look, who to call, what door to knock on. They knew Jesus' face and who he was, his voice. But then it's there that their eyes roll. They were having a conversation about Jesus all the time, having it with Jesus. And the same thing happens too in our conversations about Jesus, especially as Scripture's open. Because there are promises that we can cling to. One is, we heard in our gospel lesson earlier read, that where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst.